some Pedro's Bike Lust, Silkline bike polish, Silicone, none of them. Why did I want a new bike? My Giant TCR is a good bike. I've done a lot of bike rides on it. I've ridden Centuries. I've been riding that bike for 9 years. It has got to be a bit of, in terms of technology, on the older side. So it's rim brake. When it's wet and grimy, it doesn't slow down as well as a disc brake bike. That limits the size of the tyres, and it's clear that if you have bigger volume tyres on a road bike now, it doesn't slow you down as much as people thought, and it's more comfortable. Although I've got an aero bike, so if I'm professing it's all for comfort, then that's not the right bike, what I've built really. I would be building an endurance bike, but I've gone for a rapid aero weapon. So I wanted a new bike to bring up the minimum standard of the frame to current technology, which means that if something comes out and I want to tinker around and upgrade or even get stuff second-hand or new, I can do that on the current bike I've built. Why build a bike? I've built a bike because if you buy a bike off the shelf complete, they are big money. Now, it's common knowledge now that the bike industry is in a bit of turmoil. I think prices have got extortionate. They were too high. They made higher-end bikes unaffordable, far more than the price of a car. What I've tried to do is build a high-spec bike. This isn't a cheap bike. I've tried to do a high-spec build on a budget. So I genuinely believe this will be at least £3,000 less, if not considerably more less than if you bought one off the shelf. So if you look at the big makes, if you look at Giant, if you look at Specialized, you look at Trek, if you start looking at SRAM red versions of their aero bikes, they are more than £10,000. And when I do the review, I'll do a full budget of what I've spent on this bike build as well, so you can see how much money I've theoretically saved. Now, it's not a full SRAM red build, it's kind of 3/4 SRAM red. Like I said, if some second-hand bits come up cheap and they're worth the money, then it might be worth changing the cranking cassette at some point, but we're just talking a few hundred grams, but a lot more money to do that. But that would be a full SRAM group set then, including the chain. So I built a bike because it saves money, but I built a bike because I thought it'd be fun, and it's nice to know how everything goes together. I do think there's still a lot more to learn about bike mechanics. I'm not a professional. Building a new bike, I was hoping wouldn't be too stressful, and it wasn't too bad. You can build a new bike on an even tighter budget, and in the third episode, when I complete a review, I'll do price comparison of new bikes of what I think are a similar spec, what this bike cost, but I'd like to do another budget of a much more budget-friendly new build that might be more accessible to people. And then why did I pick Winspace? Well, you might say, well, these other bikes that cost 10, 11, 12, 13,000 pounds, the frames are a lot better. But what you'll find is when you do enough research, the reason for picking Winspace here, Winspace is definitely seen to be much higher quality than some of the big brands out there when they start to cut frames in half, when they're putting cameras on the inside where people wouldn't normally see. You do get to find a lot out, and a lot's been done on the Winspace frames as well to compare, and they seem to be really well thought of. So fingers crossed it's a good bang for buck. Not the cheapest bike, but good bang for buck. So that's why I built Winspace. And then Winspace are more famous for their wheels. They're really well thought of for their wheels. So I was definitely going to get the wheels. Black Friday came along, there's a special deal which had the wheels, the frame, and their one-piece handlebar, which is what I did. Please watch the build video. Remember, I am an amateur. It's the first bike I've built. I've done some bike mechanics, and all of my knowledge, dangerously, a lot of Reddit forums, a lot of YouTube videos. I do think when you build something with new parts, it's probably easier than building something together with second-hand parts, or even fixing things that are broken. That being said, I probably spent in total 20 hours building this bike. I've kept some of the highlights for you. I hope you find it useful. If you ever need to know in any more depth about any parts of the process, feel free to ask me. I will ask the best I can, or maybe point you in the direction of a better video that gives you more detail and instruction exactly how to do stuff. Don't be scared, it's doable. Be patient, don't force things. Shop around, be careful what you buy, try not to blow your money on tools. Try and work out what you really need and what you can get by without. Hope you enjoy the build, and hope to see you in episode 3. Hopefully you can see the chimney's gone here. Maximum space is of 30mm. I did measure it correctly. I've cut it, I fitted the compression plug, and I've now fitted headset bearings for the first time. So you clamp that there, and it's dead simple. You put the steerer tube through here, clamp it down, and this groove here is where your hacksaw blade passes through. So you get a dead square cut. Brilliant, that worked. I said I'd show you the steerer. I've had to take the steerer out the frame here because we need to feed the brake cables through. So this is what the top looks like here. Use the right tool, and that's how square you can have the steerer tube, nice and square. So if you had a wonky one, you put this top cap in, so you drop the cap in, make sure it's nice and clean, use some alcohol on the inside, on the outside, carbon paste on the edge of on the outside of the plug, which just drops in. Then you tighten up the nut in there to the right torque, which was 5.5 Newton meters, I think it was. It's actually written on my top cap, so whatever the bike said. And then that's in nice and hard, so it's the right length, and it's got a headset bung in there now. And then when you do the top cap in it, there should be a 2 or 3 mil, couple of mil gap, and it just compresses everything together. Then the last thing you do is you tighten up your handlebars. So that's giving you some protection as well. Again, to the right Newton meters, which mine are only, it's not written on the handlebars, which is unusual. So it's a integrated one-piece unit. So I've gone with 5 Newton meters. Undecided whether to put carbon paste on this, so we'll see. Anyway, so that's come off because we're going to route the cable. Yay! Through the back, through here, and up through here, hopefully. Wish me luck. Okay, back from lunch. It's still cold, so having to wrap up warm in here. Feeding the cables through the integrated bar and stem was a bit of a nuisance, I won't lie. Bit of a pain in the arse. I have wiped everything down with alcohol as well, just in case any .4 got anywhere. I've already got bleed blocks in the brakes, so what I'd like to do now is I've greased all the headset up, reassembled it, torque it down so that's installed. Then I think pop the shifters on, fit the pipes and bleed the brakes. If I get that done, that's quite a big chunk done. I haven't pulled anything tight. In fact, I'm doing the opposite, because if anything needs a bit of a tug when we cut it, I'd rather have a bit of spare than not. Next bit's quite critical because we'll be cutting these and attaching them to the levers. Only about 3 mil there to pull that down. I get the I can't remember what it's called. Stop motion? Time lapse. Get the time lapse going, get some more done, and then I've done the 2, what I think should be the hardest bits, if I can get this done and bled. The rest is a bit more assembly, not bleeding and feeding cables through. It should kind of go on, do up, torque wrench, done. I hope so. I've watched the video, SRAM video. You'll push oil from the hoods through the caliper into the other syringe. Then you'll suck on that syringe by pulling the syringe. You won't suck on the syringe. You'll pull the syringe, which will create a vacuum, which will pull the oil back through. And you should be eliminating all the air bubbles. And then you lock it down and you've got an airtight system. Do the other brake and then we're done. The brakes are all bled now. I've got the brake pads in. Bottom bracket. Let's do that, and then we'll fit the crankset and then build the wheels. Okay, this is where I got up to today. I went to fit the bottom bracket. Sadly, I did not have the right spaces. I ordered the wrong bottom bracket kit. It's the right bottom bracket, but the wrong spacer to fit the crank. So I got on and built the wheels, popped the cassette on, put these tyres in, had a bit of an explosion with the sealant. Not using Stan's fluid, which is my favourite. I've got another bottle left over and I just didn't want to waste money, so I'm using it and we'll see how we get on with it. I might have to switch it out. And I've got these nice Wolfe Teeth anodised red centre locks for the rotors just to go with the frame. It's been a couple of days since I recorded, and I've put a bit more work into the bike, so it's coming on now. I needed a 3mm spacer for the bottom bracket because I got the wrong bottom bracket kit. That was about £3 off eBay, and then managed to put the crank in. I've put the front derailleur on, the rear derailleur on, the cassettes on, the wheels are in. I filmed all the hard stuff, so routing the cables, bleeding the brakes, and the saddle's on now, so I'll give you a quick view. All that's left to do is put the chain on and wrap the bar tape. I don't know if I'll get it all done today, so there you go, see what you think. I've spent an hour and a half messing about with front derailleur. This is definitely one of the more fiddly parts to fit. Mechanically, it's kind of not the hardest, but there's a bit more faff to it. So getting this just right takes a bit of effort. When you first mount it, it comes with a guide, mine did, in here, which was good for a rough setup, and you sit the teeth here into this plastic thing that sits within here, red plastic thing. And the idea is you tighten up this bolt here, which is what tightens it to the bracket that's on the bike. What happened is that when you tighten this and you torque it up properly, the angle that this derailleur is on moves that way or that way, which is quite frustrating. So you'll line it all up perfectly, get the torque right, and it just shifts a bit. So a tip I've got really is just trying to make sure that you make sure it's torqued up here fully, how you'd like it before you put the shim in the back, and I'll show you what the shim is. So really just get the height right. There's a little marker in here, and there's a line you can see here which needs to be directly over this cog, and there's a line on the back of the derailleur down here which needs to be directly over the cog. They're very important. I don't know if you can see that just there. There's a little, below the chain and above those teeth, there's a little oblong marker which you might be able to see. Just there in front of my thumb, and that's where you need to line your teeth up to, okay? And if you're too low, you will potentially jam the chain. And finally, there is a shim that it highly recommends you put in, and I would too, because you technically could just not put it in. But what it does is it gives strength to the derailleur. The derailleur is on a curved mounting bracket, which mine's called a braze-on mount here. That's what it screws to, and that's why when you tighten it up, because it's a curved piece of metal, it can kind of make it move in or out. But it could flex when it changes gear, and that'll reduce your gear performance. So there are shims so that it braces it at the back of it, and that way it just stops the derailleur flexing when it lifts the chain. And that should give you a better performance for changing gears. What we have is some super sticky cush from Supercaz. Little red finishing touches here, which I thought might go quite nice with the bike. I have marked where I want the tape to finish. I'm not going naked on the top, so I'm going to have a bit of grip, and I just think, colder days it will feel nicer. See how tidy a job I do. I'm kind of dreading this. I'm a bit nervous because the bike looks nice, and I feel like I could make it look a bit scruffy if I get this wrong. But we will see. I started it a bit straighter and then went into a bend, which some people tell you not to do, but I'm just finding it tightens up better. I'm hoping I can get this bung in. This is a bit, I think it's fine. Well, I was making a mistake of making it too close earlier, and I think it made it too loose. So I think this is better. And it really is just trying to make sure you keep that tension and equal kind of distance. Now when you get to the corner, it's not going to stay equal on both sides. And I've done this badly before and it's come apart, so you have to watch the underneath and make sure it gets enough coverage. The top's going to be fine, it's going to get closer. It's the underneath of the bar that's going to be the issue here. Regardless how much closer it gets on the top, just make sure you overlap the underneath enough. Keep that tension on.
That's where that method comes from. However, we're going to show you something that uses less tape, is less bulk.
Okay, change of plan. We're not doing figure of eight. We're going to do Ollie GCN Tech 1 year ago. Snip a little bit off, cover the metal bracket, and we're going to carry on trying to do that way. See how we go.
Okay, so we're going to put that in place as we wrap. The covering piece.
I've cut a 5 centimetre piece, well 6 centimetre piece because I was worried about it being too short, but it measured as 5 centimetre piece to tuck in here. It's got a bit of sticky back to it, so I'm hoping it might, if I'm nice to it, just stay there for me, because I think I'd like to work my way back a bit. Okay, we'll keep that there. I think this might be easier. How are we doing? So you're going to come back here, I think, as well. I would like a bit more coverage. There you go. Come on. That's done. What I'll do, I'm hoping it's a good enough job. I will do the other side away from the camera and we can have a look at the end. The Supercaz website has a video and they did it a bit different to GCN, but I think that's so you make sure you got your little graphics that you've picked, your colour flash, I guess, showing through, otherwise it won't work because it's only on one half of the tape. Bar plugs are really good. I think the tape feels really nice. Bar plugs are great. Tape feels really nice. I'm quite pleased I've gone up higher because I do think it just feels comfier. I know it looks cleaner with a lot of people not using bar tape now, but there you go. So I think the bike is built. Let's get the pedals out the old bike, put them in bottle cages, and off we go. Take it for a test ride.
I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt. Been real bad. I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in.
Initial thoughts? Seems smooth. Seems pretty good. Gear seem fine. Brakes seem fine. The narrow handlebars I think I quite like. It feels small. It's got less reach than the TCR I've got. The stack is lower, so it doesn't necessarily feel less comfortable. See what it runs like.